Verily, that one divine presence is the indwelling consciousness in all beings. Fire is its head, the sun and moon its two eyes. The vision of Scripture is its cosmic mind, its arms and legs, the four directions. The universe is its heart. Music is its voice. The wind is its breath. And from its feet, the earth has originated. Om, peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, and peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat. We were early on the scene with the Divine Mother retreat this year. Usually we give our retreat about the time of Navaratri, 9 days and 9 nights. That means of worship of Mother. She's the only deity in the world I can think of that has a period of time that long for focus of worship on her, which is a very good thing since she's so easy to forget otherwise and so behind the scenes of everything, yet animating everything, as we found out in our retreat, that even Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva perform their various functions because of her energy. Whether you want to call that energy prana, or you want to call it Shakti, or even consciousness-less form, Saguna Brahman, or Mahaprakriti, the great Mother Nature. She falls the same into that context of being the animating power in all things. So she has her 9 days and 9 nights of holy worship coming up, and I think starts October 3rd this year, which is a little early, sometimes even in September, but usually mid to late October, Navaratri begins. So about October 3rd, you can start marking the days. Actually, there are 9 goddesses in context to what we looked at when you all got kavachid, as I like to say, at the retreat. We all took a flower and did a 15 goddess or 16 goddess dedication and took vow for Holy Mother, for Divine Mother. And in this way, also at Navaratri time, there's 9 goddesses with, like Katyayani and others, that you can worship each day and focus on each day, offer a flower to her name, to her image, to her presence, and find out what each of those goddesses mean in the context of spiritual life and even one's daily life. Because we found out that with the kavacha we did with the flower, to our different points of our body and different directions and so forth, as I just chanted about her arms and legs are the 4 directions, and east, west, north, and south, that means, and of course all the other directions as well that go with them. We find out that her presence is everywhere there, and all we have to do is to acknowledge it. And then it becomes into the context of our life, and she begins to bless us in more conscious ways than we were previously aware of. You all probably have heard that chant, Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan, Devatma Shaktim Swagunayar Nagudam. She's the Devatma, the divine Shakti in everything. And they had a hard time. The chant goes on to explain that the ancient rishis couldn't see her at first because of the limitation of their own intellects. So they expanded that through the Te Dhyan Yoga, through the yoga of meditation. They expanded their intellects. Combination, I think, of studying scripture with the guru and meditating. Those two yogas have a very powerful effect on one's spiritual life, especially one's deep inner spiritual life. There are beautiful external practices like puja and chanting and bhakti practices and so forth that really flesh out the outer part of one's spiritual life. But if you really want to get to the core of things, where often karmas lurk and some scars are impeding the soul, and maybe some blockages called grantis are there, which are keeping you from enjoying fully this divine human form in the way that it was supposed to be enjoyed with exquisite pleasure, Vivekananda has said. And then you go deep into those yogas that deal with those problems of blockage or impedance. And so each one of those goddesses has efficacy on each one of those days for us to follow along and broaden our spiritual life. Again, Apiyantu Maman Bani Bhak Pranaschakshu Shrotamatra Balam Indriyani Chasarvani. May my body experience great health. May my life force flow unimpeded. May my mind expand in its capacity to know Brahman. So all of these chants are simultaneously telling us about the existence of Brahman as being all-pervasive and eternal, and at the same time telling us that we have to expand ourselves in order to realize that. So with that as a kind of introduction to our usual high-minded and noble Vedantic topic, I ask you all to come forth with what you've been thinking. I haven't seen some of you, although I got to see some of you in person at the retreat, but on the format here for Satsang, I haven't heard and talked with you directly about what you've been studying and what's come into your mind. Perhaps some great questions or great queries have come up, or some insights and realizations. So who wants to start and enter into the spirit of Satsang?
I will. And it's not a question, it's a request. Out of all the names that I see here in our satsang, only one person besides myself was there at the retreat. And so I was wondering if, as also part of your recap of the teachings from the retreat, if you would talk about Naimi Sharanya, because it seems very fitting as we launch into our autumn series of satsangs and classes and everything.
Basically, Naimi Sharanya is the divine location upon which the whole Srimad Devi Bhagavatam is based, that scripture we studied at retreat. Also, it's where you're sitting right now if you've managed to consecrate your location. So early in the scripture, Sri Durga Devi brings up the fact that there are three purities to be attained. That's one of the early mother teachings. And that's Kriya Shuddhi and Dravi Shuddhi, Chit Shuddhi. Sometimes the names changed a little bit in the scriptures, but Dravi Shuddhi would be basically purity of those articles and location that you're in. Like if you've managed to, like I'm I'm sitting here at this table where I also take prasad, and I'm also giving the class here. So this table is like a sacred ornament in my house, and it's not just a piece of furniture. It's a place where the actions that I do, which is the next purity, Kriya Shuddhi, it's called, purity of your acts, go together with the purity of the location. So if you have this in your mind as something to attain and something to accomplish, and you've accomplished it, and now you, like your shrine room, then your shrine room has become pure in those ways. And you should be able to come out of the shrine room and look at everything else as aspects of your shrine. Basically, it's not just like Holy Mother said, God doesn't just exist when your eyes are closed. She met in meditation. and then cease to exist when you open them, and then you see the world and God's not there anymore. Basically, God exists at the foundation of everything. So it's the same here with these Shuddhis. So Chit Shuddhi, of course, is the most difficult to attain, purity of mind. And that's why I see what the birthdays are coming up here. Swami Abhedananda is in about 4 or 5 days. So he was known as Kali among the master's disciples. And he attended on Holy Mother herself when he was just a teenager and was kind of her servant. I think he was her first servant. Later on, Swami Yogananda came, and after that, Swami Shardananda took turns really being close to Holy Mother and helping her with what she needed in her life. So with Swami Abhedananda, his birthday's in a few days, and Akhandananda is early next month, and then we have the Navaratri coming. So those are these holy personages that have pure minds, Chit Shuddhi. They were born into situations that were already divine. They didn't have to go and attain things. They brought them with them, just like the Atman, wherever it manifests itself, will bring Atman with it. And so if it brings a temple, like the Kali temple with it, like Sri Ramakrishna did, or, it could bring an ashram, like Lord Vashishta did when he came into the body. It could bring 8 limbs of yoga, like Patanjali did when he came. So when the Atman moves, apparently so, we say, it brings all of these divine articles and atmosphere and so forth with it. So the divine atmosphere is very important. Anyway, that's a more in-depth look at what Naimi Sharanya is. But for the Devi Bhagavatam location, all the rishis had gathered together there. I just mentioned that chant where they said Tejan Yoga. We had to practice the yoga of meditation before we saw this Devatma Shaktim, this divine energy and everything, before they just saw energy, basically like science is doing. Oh, let's look at different kinds of energy. Why does the tree grow, and why do I move my arm? How can I see? And what created the universe, a big bang, that kind of energy. But this divine energy, which was at the foundation of everything and which was hidden, like oil and sesame seeds, hidden like that, like gold in rivers and mountain rivers. As the Upanishads state, that's not seen very readily or easily. And so they went to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma, it's a very beautiful story. Lord Brahma said, well, guess what? You're in a cycle of time, and it's called a yuga or a Mahayuga. And I'm going to give you something that will help you keep your memory of your divine nature, why you enter your changing nature. Your changing nature is body and senses and objects. You're not that. Okay, that's already a given conclusion in the Vedanta, but why do we always forget that we're not that? It's so natural for us to feel like we're our body and senses and the things around us and so forth. And yes, we want to transfer those things also into emanations of Brahman, like I'm saying right now, with the 3 kinds of purity. But most people don't do that. They just let it happen. Let's just say, oh, yeah, just let it flow, man, as they used to say back in the 60s. So basically, you have to make some conscious effort, you see, to bring this out of hiding, this divine Shakti out of hiding. So the rishis, Lord Brahma said to the rishis, since the real divinity in you and she herself is in hiding, then I'm going to give you this wheel. So he gave them this knowledge of this wheel of time called the Kala Chakra. Or sometime our first chart at the retreat was about the Kala Chakra from the Vedas. And basically it's a wheel that is supported by so many different things, like the 3 gunas and the 5 senses and dharma, adharma, all these dualities are there. And Brahman told them, watch this wheel. I'm going to set it spinning now. You just follow this wheel. And when you see that wheel begin to thin and finally break, make your Naimi Sharanya there. you make your sacred place there, because then that means that time has run out on the power of Maya over the human mind, and it can begin to see its true nature. Like when Sri Krishna or any avatar comes, that thins that wheel of time, and beings can actually become divine. Imagine it. All these people out here doing so many various things, having no idea where they came from, who they are, and so forth, or what's possible for them as human beings. All of a sudden, they can become great rishis or seers or saints, realized souls, luminaries. So the rishis follow that wheel till it became so thin after it rolled for a while. And of course, they had to keep up their practice while they did this, so they wouldn't forget. Like they could come to forget all of a sudden, oh, Brahman gave us this wheel. All of us are like that. You know, we've been given this wheel of time, space, cause and effect. Yet we get lost in it, right? And then we don't know that it's just a wheel, and it's going to stop rolling at some point. It's going to break down, and we're going to be ourselves again. We all forget this, and it's called ignorance, avidya. So we have to do some practice to keep that vidya more constant in our consciousness until that wheel naturally begins to thin out, and Mother steps forward out from behind the veil, or we see the light of Brahman, or we hear the sound of the Pranava, Om, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, Sunday's class some. So when those things occur to us, then it's a signal of that wheel of Maya, the Kala chakra has thinned out, and then we can settle ourselves into this divine space. So the rishis did that. They followed this wheel that Lord Brahma gave them. It thinned out, it broke. They collected there, all of them, and then they meditated and asked the greatest of all of them to come and visit Naimi Sharanya. That's a sacred place that they created. And they stopped doing animal sacrifice, which some of that had been done. They started doing meditations there. They started making it pure in every way possible. And so the greatest rishis began to collect there and give them teachings. Well, basically, that's Naimi Sharanya. So you say, basically, we can create, like here on a computer screen, we've created a kind of Naimi Sharanya, a sacred space where we take refuge, Sharana. And then we talk about Brahman inside of that space. And then we're going to go back into our lives for 6 days. We'll come back here to Naimi Sharanya, and we'll do it. We'll keep this Saturday holy place going in our hearts and minds. And we'll keep visiting it and find out what kind of questions and answers come up inside of this noble subject. So trying to keep it as short as possible, that was the beginning of our retreat, talking about this noble, holy place that we all create, and even in the shrines in our homes. And then we go there, and it's a refuge from the wheel of time and the illusions in space and the presumptions of name and form over the nameless, formless reality.
Namaste, Babaji.
Yes, the Samkhya Yoga chapter. We even chanted that at the retreat one morning. I did the end of the Samkhya Yoga chapter because it was so long. But yes, that's a beautiful sloka, and it reminds me of the Katha Upanishad, even when it says all of this is Brahman, yes, but not what people worship here. And at the end of the next sloka, not what people worship here. And to the end of the next sloka, not what people worship here. That line ends about a whole series of slokas, and they're trying to talk about the obvious existence of Brahman everywhere and in everything, but not what people worship here. That's not what we're talking about. So what people worship here is the daytime to the ordinary person, but it's Maya. They all live in the light, as it were, the false light, the fake light of reflection from physical sun and physical moon and stars and so forth. all the grandeur of nature. It's all really the glory of Brahman, the Upanishad says. But people don't see the Brahman in it. They just see the glory. Like Sri Ramakrishna saying, they go to the garden and they never inquire of the owner of the garden who planned it and nurtured it and made it so beautiful. So that's again back to what I was saying about Naimi Sharanya, is that you have to become conscious of an indwelling spirit in everything, which I chanted in the beginning, and then bring it out. Like sesame, like oil and sesame seeds. Bring it out, press it. Take it, get the nutrients from it. So that's the daytime to the ordinary people. But that very daytime of enjoyments and scenes and phenomena, which phenomena actually can become a very dangerous thing after a while and hypnotize people, like say nowadays in politics or in science in the West. They're just hypnotized by external things to such an extent that they don't know the source of them. The internal has been forgotten. And so that daytime to the ordinary being is nighttime to the Muni, Sri Krishna says in the Gita. And in that daytime, ignorant people awaken. And in that daytime, the realized souls retreat from as if it were sleep, as if they're asleep to them. So you look at the opposite side of that, flip it and say, well, then this light that they see inside after they give up the outer light is daytime to them. And that's nighttime to the ordinary person because they don't know about what's inside. They don't know the inner light. They only know the outer glares, the outer reflections, the outer facade of things. And they've taken that to be real. So this main truth of Vedanta, probably the first and primal truth of Vedanta, is that God is real, the world's unreal. It's hard for people to hear because they're so attached to the daytime of this world. But that daytime of this world is nighttime to the Muni, who knows that deep within the consciousness of all living beings, the sun does not shine, the moon does not shine, the stars do not shine, fire does not burn. Only that Atman is there. That's the light of the Atman that makes everything externally shine. So we all know that beautiful sloka that we use for our puja. In our own Naimi Sharanya, we sit in front of the shrine, we pick up a candle, and we na tatra suryabhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yam agni. So Surya, Chandra, and Agni are all outer fires, and we're holding the outer fire in a candle, and we're telling ourselves, this is outer light, this is outer light, but there's a cause for it. It wouldn't shine, it wouldn't burn, it wouldn't have its power to light up the universe if it weren't for the light of the Atman inside. And so when you salute the sun, for instance, if they used to laugh at people, well, not really laugh at them, but smile inside. Say basically they do the salute to the sun, and hatha yogis and so forth. They say, well, but they don't even know out of the Rig Veda, you see, Rashmi Mantam, Samudyantam, Devasura Namaskritam, that great sun god is not the sun. It's not even the billions of suns in the sky. It's the light of the Atman, which makes all these suns burn outside. It'd be like all these suns were great thoughts that the sun god had, and they turned into physical expressions, explosions of fire and in the night skies, burning as stars. So knowledge like that is the daytime to the illumined rishi, but that kind of knowledge, as we know, trying to spread the Vedanta in the world today, particularly in the West, is nighttime to people. They cannot open their eyes there yet. I was enjoying one of these and savoring one of these beautiful slokas that I want to memorize too. That it's from the Yajnavalkya Samhita. Can't put my eyes on it right now, but the English of it is that there's a primal error of double vision causes the soul to suffer. So this is seeing duality everywhere and taking it to be real. And so, but only the knowledge of the oneness of the soul with Brahman will cause that eye to become single again. So we're looking with a double vision, and that's causing us all this suffering. But if we just would get it, make our eyes single again, as Jesus said, then look on everything with a single eye, then that would do away with all this suffering. Because consciousness is non-dual, and thou art that. That's the import of that sloka from the Yajnavalkya Samhita. So with that single eye, then they look upon this world and they say, well, this is like kind of nighttime to me. Everyone else is frolicking about in the daytime. But they look inside with this knowledge and they say, oh, there's the daytime of illumination, of eternal Brahman is within me. And other people are unable to open that third eye and see it that way. That's basically the implication, in probably too many words, of that beautiful sloka. What's daytime to the all-cognizing Muni is nighttime to the ordinary soul, and vice versa. Yes, Isha.
Yeah, thank you for that, Babaji. Well, yeah, recently I've been thinking about like how inside of the tradition and how inside Indian philosophy you have philosophy and culture, you have all these different personalities. And of course, you mentioned, Abhinaya mentioned the Bhagavad Gita, and naturally, of course, therein Krishna shines, and yeah, Krishna is basically preaching to Arjuna Atmavid or Brahmavid, you could say, in the Bhagavad Gita. And you have Rama, and you have all these different prominent figures who appear on the scene in India. And I was actually thinking also that behind the scenes, basically, you can also find other characters like the different rishis. And one of the most prominent rishi is Yajnavalkya. He's a very prominent, I've done a little background check on him, and he's a very prominent figure. He appears in Taittiriya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and he's also mentioned in the Mahabharata and the Puranas. Of course, like the most notable, maybe his most famous appearance in the Upanishad is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where he talked with his scholastic wife, Maitri. They talk about the essence of love. It's a very beautiful narration and dialogue which takes place in the Upanishads. And yeah, it's very interesting to note his name. I mean, Yajnavalkya. You look at the first part of his name, Yajna, which of course refers to the ritual. It's almost as if it represents ritualism. I think the Yajna part of his name means a branch. So it's like somebody, the meaning of his name is like somebody who puts a branch onto the fire, who puts a branch of wood into the fire sacrifice. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, inside of India, obviously, at the time of the rishis, you have like this push and pull by different ideas. You have ritualism, and then you have asceticism. And despite the name, Yajnavalkya is not really a ritualist. He's a rishi and sannyasi who has renounced everything. So he's like somebody that represents asceticism in that sense. But even, yeah, my general question just was, how to understand these characters and how to digest them as such. Before you leave, I want to mention one thing here. There's also what we have with Yajnavalkya is this Dharma Smriti, which he left behind. And therein, there's a very, very beautiful Dharma Smriti text wherein he speaks with Janaka. Janaka is a kingly rishi. I mean, he's a Brahma Jnani, but at the same time a king. And it's a very interesting dialogue which takes place between this noble king and Yajnavalkya inside of this Dharma Smriti text. So the dialogue basically it evolves in a progressively deeper way, where questions about the source of light for man is raised. Yajnavalkya is asked about the nature of light in regards to man, and he answers, and he gives a very beautiful answer. He says, first of all, for human beings, sun, when the sun is present, sun is the source of light for all living and working peoples. And then number two, as the sun disappears, the moon takes over and gives light to beings on the earth. And then when the moon is not visible, then human beings use fire to gain light. When both sun and moon have set, the fire lights up environment. And then when even there's no fire around, sound, with all light and fires extinguished, sound guides a person in the dark. It's a very beautiful idea, really. I mean, we can all then think about what comes lastly, and most importantly, number 5, with all lights and sounds gone, the self becomes the ultimate illuminator that guides in life. And yeah, I mean, it's a very beautiful thing in itself. It's very impressive also. He mentioned the thing before the self is sound. Very interesting. Shabda Brahman, even when the fire and the moon and the sun, they're all gone, you still have a sound which indicates the presence of the self. That's maybe an interesting thing to talk about. Could you, if possibly, just a little while? Thank you.
Well, you yourself just elucidated on it very, very wonderfully, gave a good synopsis of everything that's there. Yes, Yajnavalkya is always one of our favorites of the rishis, but there's, unlike others that are also very prominent in that circle of Naimi Sharanya, for instance, that we're talking about, because he visited that too in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, along with Brihaspati and a few others. And so those rishis are all highly favored for their, not only their lucid wisdom, but their straightforward way of explaining it. Like you said, he talked with his wife about the essence of love. So there's those famous slokas there that, and where she says, it's not for the sake of the husband that the husband is loved, but sake of the Atman in the husband. It's not for the sake of the wife that the wife is loved, but for the sake of the Atman in the wife. And it's not for the sake of the baby that the baby is loved, but for the sake of the Atman within the baby. It's like Sri Ramakrishna looking at all his young disciples there and being criticized for loving them so much. And then he goes to Mother Kali and asks her, do I really love them? Am I attached to them like that? And Mother Kali answers him and says, if you didn't see the Atman in them, you wouldn't want anything to do with them whatsoever. As if they would be worthless, like living in the daytime of phenomena and superficial existence. So it's just diving deep into the depths of God's love and finding out these truths that really define the soul and return it to its natural divine status. So Yajnavalkya is one of those that explains that. And yes, it's a very beautiful order of things when he ends up penultimately on sound. People don't usually think about that. What if the sun goes away? Oh, there's the moon. Good, it's nighttime. I've got a little light with which I can walk around. Oh, both of them are gone tonight. Too much clouds or whatever. There's fire. I'll light one, but I don't have any wood. Now what's happening? Where's my light? And so it's sort of almost like saying, why don't you meditate without any of these supports and take away the senses? Because the senses need light to function, some kind of light that comes from prana and its flow. So why don't I then stop breathing where prana is the source of that? I just stop my breath, even it out, go into kumbhaka, and then find out what's there. Find out that what is there is this humming sound called the pranava or om, which is talked about. And that's kind of the primeval light, which one uses a subtler sense of hearing in order to detect, and you'll find that it's inside oneself. It starts at the navel, goes to the heart, they say, and moves up. So you detect this primal force of the pranava, or the unstruck sound, they call it. And usually below the navel, that is the other three chakras, people aren't hearing that. I hardly met anyone in my life who ever heard Om, but I heard it very young. And so you move around and find out that it's going to suggest itself, make itself audible in its own special way when you open the gateway from the Manipura, the navel chakra, to the heart chakra. Of course, again, reading yesterday, people teaching that you look up chakras and on the computer, and they say that it's in your physical spine. They just don't have the intelligence to understand that you could dissect the physical spine all you want, you wouldn't find a lotus in there or anything. Even the energy that's flowing there in the physical spine is hard to put your finger on and define and detect. So it goes much subtler to our subtle body, the sukshma sharira, it's called. And if you open a gate to that, then you'll it's just, it would be like sort of walking closer and closer to the source of this great sound. You could say the ocean. You go over sand dunes, and pretty soon that distant sound becomes a rumble. Or say here, if you walk toward the volcano, which we used to do when we were younger, and we wanted to get up close to the volcano and watch it erupt, then the ground shakes more and more, and the sound becomes more apparent as you get closer and closer, walking over the lava fields. So this primal sound suggests itself, and becomes more and more noticeable as you move inwards towards its source, which would be there in the Om, the Pranava. And if that goes away, then you have Param Jyoti, this supreme light, the Shabda Brahman, the vibration sound of the word, the primal word, is a gateway opening into the Param Jyoti, the supreme ocean of light. There again, beings only catch an occasional vision of that, possibly in dreaming or deep sleep, when they, and the same with the sound of Om. They only hear it as a deep vibration when they cross over some transition point inside of the consciousness, moving from center to center or from level to level of vibration. In deep sleep, the vibration of the intellect is gone. Buddhahe vritti, they call that. Even the intellect stops vibrating in deep sleep. And so when consciousness becomes aware of itself as the primal foundation of everything, then only could it say, oh, my intellect stops vibrating. So that's the final proof that it's not the intellect either. Because it's very difficult to, for most people to say, I'm not the body. And when they get over that hurdle, then you become intellectual and you're very attached to the mind. Very difficult to say that. And then if you're going inside, like you were just doing with Yajnavalkya's teaching, the next hurdle would be the intellect vibrating and my knowledge. Then it gets very difficult for people to get over the attachment to their knowledge. And guess what that is when you can't get over attachment to your knowledge? That's your ego. It's my knowledge. I can't give it up. And so there's where you would transcend the fourfold mind the ahamkara and the chitta part of the fourfold mind. And at that point, then you would have this rush of divine sound, or this flood of divine light come upon you. And as Sri Ramakrishna said, the person would say, "Oh, what is this? What is this? I've never seen or heard anything like this in all my lifetimes." By that time, you'd know that you've lived many, and that you're an undying soul. So there, all the light goes away, and even the sound. You transcend Om, and there you are, one with the Father in an ocean of light. You were a hailstone that fell into the ocean, and the last thing you said was, "My intellect isn't vibrating anymore. I'm beyond knowledge and knowing, and objects of knowledge, and the power of knowing. All of that has dissolved back into its source." So this is a very secret experience, to quote Sri Ramakrishna. Who else has, in the final, say, 5 or 6 minutes, something to bring up, to add to this satsang? It's very wonderful that we can immediately jump right into the subjects of Brahman the minute we see each other. That creates a very good habit for us. And the only problem with it is then going amongst humanity and not finding kindred souls like that, who will approach you and say, "How are you? Who are you? How's the weather?" or something. And then your opportunity for any deeper communion is lost right away. So our Naimi Sharanya here, our sacred place that we've created for one another, is a very deep blessing which Divine Mother has bestowed upon us in this lifetime. Something very precious and sacred. And let's continue nourishing it. Well, then, enough to say that satsang is also something to prepare for. You can just come and show up and benefit from it, no doubt, and let all the others do the talking. But you can prepare for it. Just jot down things as you study. Or if a question comes up that's been stultifying you from your recent studies, or maybe all your life, something that you've always wanted to know, then the umbrella of Vedanta you can find shelter from the rain of avidya underneath that umbrella and get everything answered. I haven't found anything that Vedanta hasn't been able to answer, at least for me personally. And you know me, I have a lot of questions and answers going on in my sacred space. So all of you, blessings and all, good to see you, and look forward to God blogs and tomorrow's class on the subject of the, Yoga Chudamani Upanishad. Chudamani means like jewel or crown. So what are the jewels in the crown of yoga? The Upanishads have something to say about that. There's some like, maybe 10, maybe 20 Upanishads that have a lot to say about yoga, particularly Raja Yoga. And then there's, as we know, some 5, 6, 7 Shakta Upanishads that have a lot to say about Divine Mother. So tomorrow we'll look at the Yoga Chudamani Upanishad and find out what it has to say about some of these subjects which we've been actually looking into today in today's satsang. Om Shanta Mahanto Neva Shanti Shanto Vashantavat Lokahitam Charantaha Tirnaha Svayam Bhima Bhavanavam Janam Ahe Tunanyan Api Tarayantaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. There are luminaries on this earth, silent and great, who, like the coming of the spring season, bring about the well-being of the world. They themselves have crossed the ocean of this world, and free of selfish motive, help others to do the same. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat.